The nation's top quarterbacks just wrapped up the Elite 11 finals here in Los Angeles, California. We're here to break it all down. Cooper Patagna, national recruiting analyst for 24/7 Sports. We're also joined by the director of scouting at 24/7 Sports, Andrew Ivins. I am Blair Angulo. Guys, we talked about day one being the moment for them to set the stage, right, as quarterback prospects. Day two was moving day. Day three was what?
Final round. Right, it was the final round. I think we had two leaders go off where the rest of the group couldn't kind of really catch them, right? And those two names, Julian Sayin, Dylan Raiola, two of our top-ranked quarterbacks. Dylan Raiola is obviously number one. So we came in today. This was the final chance to kind of get the scorecard how you wanted it. And it was 7-on-7 play. There was an accuracy challenge and a ton of competition.
I think a little bit of fatigue kind of set in, day three. I think these guys, they've had a long week. And listen, it's not just out here on the field and getting these reps in, but there's a lot of coaching development that takes place when they're not on the field as well. So I thought day three, it's we talked about day two being moving day. Day three is a little bit of a separator itself. You want to see the guys who can maintain focus, and obviously, listen, we're going to talk a little bit about him. Julian Sayin, right, the Elite 11 MVP. Also, Dylan Raiola, number one player in the country. Those two came out. They did what I thought they would do. I think everybody else, was a little bit up and down. We'll jump into that, but overall, good day.
Yeah, final round. It was a huge week, obviously, for some of the nation's best quarterbacks in this showcase event. We're going to head over to Bud Elliott, national analyst at 24/7 Sports, with a very special guest.
Thanks, Blair. I'm here with Yogi Roth, Elite 11, author of the 5-Star QB. Yogi, what did you see Julian do that allowed him to take it over the top and be the Elite 11 MVP?
Well, number one, thanks for having me, man. I love the coverage you guys have, being out here at this event in year 25. It's amazing. And what we challenged all the quarterbacks and Julian to do when they got here was try to be the most connected class in the history of the 25 years of Elite 11. And that means, like, pouring yourself into everything that we do on the field, of course, X's and O's, of course, but really all the intangibles, relationships, high-performance psychology, all the things that we put these guys through that over the 47 hours we had them, he was all about. You knew his tape was elite. He came in, he was one of the top 5 guys, and you just look at what he did as a football player in actual helmets. And then here, his traits were off the charts, and then the way he played his time on this field, he didn't miss many throws. He made some wow throws. His consistency at a high level was there the entire time. So he kind of did everything. He was really in pole position or in the conversation from the moment he walked into L.A.
You've been at Elite 11 for a long time now. Is there a player that Julian reminds you of, a guy you've been around, kind of the same vibe?
We were talking about that on the sideline. He reminds me a little bit of Cody Kessler. His release is different, but body type, his frame, how he moves, his personality, he's so engaging. He can connect to anybody. He'll be a captain. He'll be a starter. He'll do all the things when he goes to the next level in college. But that's probably the first one that came to mind. But he's a pure passer. I think that's the thing that stood out for me. You couldn't tell that much on tape. Like, you knew he was talented, but what stood out, like his unique trait, I was like, wow, this dude can deal. He doesn't just put it on the chest, he puts it on the front number. Like, he can locate the football in a bunch of spots, and he did it. Literally rep after rep after rep, as you saw.
I know before we went live, you were talking that you were surprised this class was a little bit deeper than you expected it to be entering the event. Is there somebody that you saw with those kind of same things behind the scenes that really impressed you, and maybe one of your personal favorites in the class?
I mean, look, Dylan Raiola, that's an easy one to say, but I think what I loved about him is that we always look at these quarterbacks and they come in this, they have a ranking, right? They also have a helmet on. They have a highlight film. They may have an NIL number associated with them. They have a school they may have committed to. But you got to get under the hood, per se. And I spent a lot of time with Dylan just to get to know who he is as a thinker, as a thought leader. As a guy's only played this position for 3 years. I mean, he's threw himself into the relationship side of this thing. You've been around this for a long time, man. You've seen quarterbacks come in, and especially the big guys, people are trying to pick them apart sometimes, and it's hard to manage that environment. A, nobody was trying to pick him apart, and B, he managed it with incredible ease. I think he's really natural in that environment. So he stood out. Trevor Jackson as well, he stood out as a guy, one of the 2 non-committed quarterbacks. Yeah. I think he's one of those guys like we've seen with Sam Darnold in the past or C.J. Stroud. They come out of the finals here, and you're going to see their recruiting explode, if it hasn't already, with the way that he performed.
For the guys who don't make the final Elite 11, what advice would you have for them?
Kind of like how we started it. We asked them when they walked in, I said, write down your intention when you got off the plane and walked in here. And over the course of the time with them, we said, can you revise it? Are you really paying attention to it? Because it probably began with win the MVP. And I hope over the course of whether it was sunrise hot yoga, cold plunge pool, all the things that you've seen on social media that we've done, they've revised that intention, and it's been about maximizing their potential. We had a sports psychologist come in. It's a great story. And he said, you're often saying you have to live up to other people's expectations. What if we eliminate the word expectations and just insert standards? And I think that a lot of these quarterbacks have revised that intention when they came into this camp. And they said, you know what? Yeah, I wanted to be in the 11 or I wanted the MVP, but that's an external. And it's really been about my standard. How did I grow? How did I get better? So that's what I would say to those that aren't in the final Elite 11 is just keep tapping into that. And then double down on the community. I mean, we challenge to be the most connected. That's the theme of this year. And I really think, I've been here since 2009, it's the most connected group we've ever had.
Yogi, really appreciate the time.
Anytime, brother. Thank you.
Blair, back to you.
Thanks, Bud. Yeah, this is an event, guys, where I think it's a quarterback's dream, right? They all, I think, have it on their checklist once they start playing the position. I want to get to the Elite 11 finals in Los Angeles, and we actually have the moment when Julian Sayin found out he was the MVP for this week.
Our 2023 Elite 11 MVP, got the trophy right here. Give it up for Julian Sayin.
A huge moment for the five-star quarterback and a player that is headed to Alabama. It's a beach town, guys. This is Redondo Beach. He's from Carlsbad. I'm sure he felt at home. Headed to the SEC, looked super comfortable, looked steady throughout the whole week. What earned him MVP?
I think it's the whole body of work, right? We take the 3-hour workout on Wednesday night. He was sharp. Football never touched the ground. Parlays that into Thursday's pro day. Had the highest score for us, had the highest score for the Elite 11 guys. He's just a pure passer. You heard it, Yogi say that. I mean, he can get it all around to different levels. I thought during the 7-on-7 portion, he came on strong late. You know, he might not have had the best wide receivers, but it was still an admirable performance. And I thought what I liked about Julian Sayin is he wasn't afraid to take some shots. Right, all these quarterbacks out here, they don't want to throw picks. They don't want to throw incompletions. And Julian Sayin, you know, he put the ball into places some other guys couldn't.
I thought he was the most consistent quarterback throughout the week. But listen, you can't just be consistent. There are 19 other guys out here that are very good quarterbacks, some of the best quarterbacks and arms in the country. I think when you look under the hood of the car with Julian Sayin, he's got a lot more than I think we initially thought. And we talk about why it's so important to see these guys live. We had a lot of debate, right, behind the scenes. Julian Sayin, Elijah Brown, who's the #1 signal caller in the state of California. And that's no disrespect to Elijah Brown, but Julian Sayin came out here. He made that very clear. And in terms of the arm, there is a lot of NFL tools there. So Tommy Rees, Nick Saban, they should be really happy. They're getting one of the best signal callers in the country.
A player that really took this event serious. I was over at the accuracy challenge, and he was the leader in the clubhouse for a while, guys. But he's kind of sneaking over, checking the score sheet, making sure he's still going to be that leader in the clubhouse. But Elliot, you are with the winner, the alpha dog from the Elite 11 finals, Julian Sayin.
Thank you, Blair. Yeah, here with Julian Sayin, Elite 11 MVP. First of all, congratulations. What does this mean to you, Julian?
Yeah, thank you. It's an extremely great honor just because of the guys that came before me. You know, so many past Elite 11 MVPs, and then just a great week out here in LA, and I'm just really excited.
I know our 24/7 sports fans at home have probably seen you play, but for all the Alabama fans out there who have not seen you play, how would you describe your game?
Yeah, I would say accuracy is really big, and then just making plays on the fly, improvising, try to find the open guy.
Is there anything about this experience that surprised you or that you really enjoyed?
I really enjoyed just the meetings we had with the high-level speakers. Like we had Coach Peterson, who used to coach Boise State and Washington. He was just talking about leadership and just confidence and how it's important in a quarterback.
Is there any kind of adversity you had out here that you had to fight through?
I mean, I'd say a lot of these guys. It's just there's a lot of pressure when you're up, and you're waiting the whole day for your turn on pro day, and there's a lot of pressure. But you kind of just gotta block that out and just go have fun with it.
Who do you like to watch? College quarterbacks, pro quarterbacks, and try to take things from and maybe model your game after.
I love watching Joe Burrow. He's an elite player in the NFL, and he's just so fun to watch. The way he plays the game, he's so smart. He's so accurate. It's so fun to watch.
Julian, really appreciate the time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Julian Sayin, obviously a terrific body of work with what he did this whole week. Cooper, you mentioned earlier that this is an opportunity for us to see these quarterbacks make throws right after each other, right? It's a great evaluation tool, and this was one of the topics heading into the week. Can Julian Sayin earn that 5th star? And I think across the board, we all agree that he has done that this week.
Yeah, I think, listen, when you look at the body of the work, he was just talking about his accuracy, that being one of the most admirable traits that he has. Right now, I think he's knocking on that door, right? What do we have him, 33, right? So he's right there. There's only 32 5-stars. But when you compare him to the rest of the field, you know, you had Dylan Raiola out here. You had Jaden Davis, right, who's also a 5-star as well, committed to Michigan. It's hard to say that Julian Sayin is not in that conversation, right? He went head-to-head with both those guys this week. We just got done saying he was probably the most complete quarterback prospect here. So there's a lot to like about him. That's going to be a conversation that we're going to have. We got to update in a couple weeks, right? So there's a lot more to talk about. But I think he did plenty enough, obviously, to put himself in that conversation, position himself going forward.
I think before we even arrived in Los Angeles, you know, we had started studying these guys a little bit more the second or the third time you watch them. And Julian Sayin was someone for me where I was like, all right, I'm coming around on him. All right, you dig into the resume. You know, his brother played at Penn, all Ivy League honorable mention, so he's got the bloodlines going on. Then you look at his record, what he has done at Carlsbad High School. I mean, he's won games, and you watch the film, works under center. Not a lot of these guys work under center, and they had to do that out here. You know, multiple throwing stations, you're taking different drops, whether it's a 3-step drop, 5-step drop, 7-step drop. So I like that. And then you dig into the stats. I said it yesterday's show. You know, he's only one of the only guys that yards per attempt is over 10 yards at the high school level, and you love to see that. That means he can push it down the field. We saw it out here. I don't think there's a throw he can't make, right? And that's saying a lot. You know, he did some things others couldn't out here, and that's why he's our MVP of the event.
Yeah, and something that stood out to me and with him particularly is that he's going at game speed, right? There are some drills here where guys maybe don't go full speed because they want to aim the football or they want to get it to a certain window, but it's not a game situation. He was taking every rep as if it was a game situation. I think that really kind of set him apart as well. That's one of the things that I think for him, he's in a way a forgotten commodity. Committed to Alabama early. You kind of, he's removed from our brain. But when you think about the questions that we had about him, about potentially earning that 5th star, Andrew, I mean, I feel like he answered a lot of those.
He did, for sure. And there was conversation about, hey, who is the top quarterback in the state of California? Cooper mentioned it, Elijah Brown, and we were big fans of him. It's hard to come out of this event thinking that Elijah Brown is the top guy. It's definitely, in our eyes, I would think, and I know I'm speaking for you here, Cooper, Julian Sayin. So we'll see how the board shakes out, but it was certainly, I think, a statement for Julian Sayin. And again, we're going to tinker with the rankings. We're coming out with a new update here soon, but I think Alabama fans should be excited. And I've said this in the past as well. We've seen what the Crimson Tide have taken at quarterback the past few years. I get the most excited about what Julian Sayin could be in that offense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Eli Holstein out here last year as well, 2 quarterback, Dylan Lonergan, right? I think that's been something that hasn't really been talked about enough, right? Jalen Milroe, Ty Simpson, who's going to get the nod under new offensive coordinator Tommy Rees. Alabama, Nick Saban, they needed that guy. Who is that guy going to be? And I'll say this about Julian Sayin. You kind of turn on the tape a little bit. He kind of bores you in a good way, right? But he wins football games. And out here, he's got a little bit more to him than I think I initially thought. He proved that today.
Our guy, Greg Biggins, likes to say that Julian Sayin is probably the quarterback most physically ready and most mature to handle the rigors of college football right away as a true freshman.
Well, speaking of Greg, after, Wednesday night, he said that was Julian Sayin's B game. I think we saw the A game during the pro day, and I would have given another A for the 7-on-7 play.
Yeah, so Julian Sayin pushing for that 5th star in the 24/7 Sports rankings. That could be coming very soon. There were other guys pushing for that extra star. Andrew, from 3 to 4, who was your guy?
Well, I think when I was asked this question, it was a little bit different. A guy who I like where we have him ranked, it's probably DJ Lagway, the University of Florida commit. He was someone that was in our top 11 both nights. It's been up and down. The goods are really good. The bads are pretty bad. And 7-on-7 play, he was 10 of 18. He threw 2 picks. I'm not really too concerned about that. I like where we have him. I think he's 43 right now in the rankings. I think that this is a guy where the senior season he's going to take a huge step forward. I think he can play his way into a 5th star. Whether it's then or after the All-Star games. I mean, he is a lottery ticket. He's got a unique frame. During the pro day, I think he had what I would call the best deep ball when he rolled out and launched it down the sidelines. Everyone in the stands was kind of going crazy. So I like where we have DJ Lagway right now. We'll see how this plays out. This is an evaluation process. This is one exposure point. And we saw him improve greatly going from his sophomore to junior season. So I like where we have DJ Lagway in the rankings.
Cooper, who did you think made a jump up in your eyes about a potential 3 to 4 in the rankings?
I think you could go a lot of different ways, but listen, I think Will Hammond was the guy who's kind of the steady presence that not a lot of people were talking about coming in to the event, committed to Texas Tech, and Joey McGuire. I mean, you see him in person, athletic build, 6'1" plus, and he came out. He was the first one yesterday, right during the pro day portion of the Elite 11, and this was a guy that put up a top 3 score, right? So I liked what he did this weekend. I thought he was a real complete performance, but you could go a lot of different ways here. There are a lot of guys that I would say made some money this weekend. Daniel Kalen committed to Matt Rule in Nebraska, but the guy that I really kind of want to hone in on a little bit, Trevor Jackson out of Florida. We didn't really know what to expect. The second youngest player in this 20-player field outside of Colin Hurley, who reclassified from 25 to 24. This is a guy with a super live arm. The Elite 11 put out some statistics yesterday on who had the highest RPM. That was Trevor Jackson, right? So the guy can sling it. There's a lot to work with. I think he's just scratching the surface of what he's going to be. And if you're a college team out there, right, my former personnel job, probably looking at this event and saying, hey, if we're still looking for a quarterback, that's the guy that I'm probably picking up the phone calling first.
Andrew, a guy we haven't mentioned yet is Ethan Grunkemeyer, and he was a guy that earned his ticket to the Elite 11 finals in State College. Big weekend for him. He committed to Penn State on that same trip. Is he a potential riser in these rankings?
I think absolutely, right? Ethan, first note I put on the 247sports.com live updates thread when I got out here is, wow, this kid's got some rip and some velocity. And I think when you look at Ethan, just like with Trevor Jackson, there's just so much developmental upside. He's clay that can be molded in a variety of different directions. And Penn State to pivot to him and grab him after taking Drew Aller 2 cycles ago, then going Jackson Smolik. I was a big fan of Ethan Grunkemeyer. I think his ability to attack the middle parts of the field is certainly unique. He's one of the best guys in this group of 20 quarterbacks when it came to that. And I wasn't charting his 7-on-7 game this afternoon, but when I looked over, man, he was picking apart the defense, throwing right into the teeth of them. So Ethan Grunkemeyer, to me, definitely stock up. Want to see what he looks like as a senior. Same thing with Trevor Jackson. Both of those guys haven't played a ton of football. Trevor Jackson's someone that actually dealt with an injury last year, played with a separated shoulder a little bit. But Ethan, a name to know, I think for sure.
Guys, I was stuck over there in the valley doing the accuracy challenge. It's a trek away in this venue, but he was really good. I think when you think about quarterbacks that were going at a different pace and going at that game speed, Ethan Grunkemeyer definitely took that to heart. For me, a guy that I think has to be in that 4-star mix now is Colin Hurley. You look at the arm talent, you look at the physical tools, you look at just how he's made up. One of the youngest guys in this event as well. So you love the projectability, you love the upside and what he can become and what he's still to learn. I think he's a terrific pickup for LSU. I loved what we saw out of him throughout the week. Just a really composed, mature performance from him. And the Tigers are getting a good one. Brian Kelly was, that was a huge, monumental recruiting victory for them to lock in at the quarterback spot. I want to move on over to the players that maybe we do have ranked in a really good spot. I want to kick it off with CJ Carr because he is on the cusp of 5-star status, and I just feel like I needed to see a little bit more from him personally, right? I loved the way he was able to attack the ball downfield. I think he has easy mechanics. I think he likes to air it out, but I wanted to see a little bit more urgency from him. Who were some of your guys?
I'm going to go with Aaron Nolan, right? Someone that we have shot up in the rankings, someone that we've continued to talk about ever, it seems like the past few months, even before Ohio State was an option for him. I like where we have him right now. On-field resume for him there at Langston Hughes High in Georgia. I mean, he has thrown for over 7,000 yards, has thrown, over 800 passes. So the live reps are there, 55 touchdowns last season. I think He's a day 2 guy right now for me. Wanted to see if he'd move into that day 1 category. Didn't happen this weekend, but that doesn't mean it can't happen at some point down the line.
Yeah, you talked about DJ Lagway a little bit earlier. I'm going to piggyback on Aaron Nolan. I like Aaron Nolan. When you talk to the Elite 11 staff, Yogi Roth, Chris Peterson, some of the other guys out here, I mean, Aaron Nolan, they rave about the intangibles, right? What's between the ears. We know he's a winner. You kind of brought up the resume outside of Elijah Brown. He's one of the best guys out here in terms of what we've seen on the field. I don't know if we're going to get Aaron Nolan's the full picture of who he is during this event, right? When the lights are the brightest, when the pads are on, that's where you get Aaron Nolan. So I love what Ohio State's getting. You saw guys like Jeremiah Smith out here. I think he's got a little bit of gravitational pull. That's what I love about Aaron Nolan. That's a hell of a gift for Ohio State.
Well, I think you put it best with the pro day, right? Aaron Nolan is a pocket passer. They're asking him to move around, and I came out of that very encouraged. Just his ability to roll out and throw off platform, off balance. I mean, he lives behind his offensive line. He wants to attack the perimeter. So for him to show that was definitely encouraging.
And it's a difficult event for left-handed quarterbacks because it's catered to the righties, unfortunately, right? I think every drill is to that side, or to, you know, it's in a way, it's built for those righties. So I think Aaron Nolan did a terrific job of really kind of adjusting to that and showcasing his ability, and that's going to be a terrific fit. And speaking of fits, Andrew, one that maybe you're not familiar with, you hadn't seen much of, was Damon Williams. He's headed to play for Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, and you told me you love that fit.
I do. He's a dual threat talent, right? Lane Kiffin seems to like his quarterbacks that can run. He likes quarterbacks in general, right? He's unafraid to take guys out of the transfer portal. But Damon, this isn't his setting, right? He's the guy on Friday nights that wants to RPO, wants to roll out, make people miss in the open field. And I thought as a passer of the football, it was impressive. He can push it to the deeper third. He's got some explosiveness for a guy that's under 6 foot. So I just love that fit there in Oxford. I think he's someone that is going to razzle and dazzle and help Lane Kiffin put up a ton of points.
And a little chip on his shoulder because he beat Dylan Raiola twice on the field last year. Also came out to California and beat Malachi Nelson. So maybe feels a little disrespected. I don't know. Lane Kiffin knows a thing or two about that as well. You liked Will Hammond to Texas Tech.
I liked Will Hammond and talked about him earlier. I love that fit and just kind of what he brings to Texas Tech. I think instant credibility. I think big up arrow over there in Lubbock and what they're trying to do, and I think he kind of fits in with that height, weight, speed philosophy that Joey McGuire is bringing over from Baylor during his time under Matt Rule, right, in Dave Aranda. The other guy I want to hit on, Luke Romanoke as well, right, really good fit, Florida State. Jordan Travis, it seems like his profile is continuing to kind of ascend in draft circles, scouting circles, going into next year. But Luke Romanoke, a guy that can spin it. I thought he struggled yesterday. I thought he bounced back today. In terms of ceilings with all these quarterbacks, Luke Romanoke's right in the mix, right? When you talk about Julian Sayin, you talk about Dylan Raiola, some of those guys, listen, I don't have a lot of money, but if I did, I'd push all my chips in on Luke Romanoke. I love that fit long term.
Oh, he's another first-year starter, right? Former wide receiver, says he grew up in a defensive household. Dad was a linebacker, brother was a defensive end, and Romanoke, you know, he started off 7-on-7 play, took 2 sacks. I don't think anyone got off to a worse start. Proceeds to then rip off 3 scoring drives, and they are big-time throws. I'm talking breaking balls over the middle. A lot of these quarterbacks did not want to test those waters, and Luke Romanoke didn't back down. So I agree, that's a great take. And I want to point out on Will Hammond and Texas Tech, when I was at check-in, I asked Will, hey, you can spend an hour with any coach breaking down film. Who would that person be? He said Mike Leach. Loves his ability to, you know, he's like, I want to pick his brain and see what he knows about quarterbacks. And he had 9 straight completions during the 7-on-7 play. So Will Hammond, I agree with that take as well.
Yeah, the Pirate, I think, would have loved Will Hammond and what he's able to do on the field. For me, I'm taking it to the Big 12. I'm taking it to the national runner-up. That's TCU and Haas Henne. I loved what we saw out of him. I had some question marks about this event and how he would fit in, right? He's a guy that flashes on Friday nights. He can run the RPO. He can take off downfield and hit that second level and make things happen with his legs. But from a passing standpoint, standpoint. I thought he brought a little bit of juice. He has some arm talent. I thought he had some easy delivery, some easy mechanics, and I think his max effort really stood out to me. And when you think about the fit at Texas Christian and what Kendall Briles likes to do with the RPO and just getting guys out in space and, you know, putting points up on the board, I think Haas is going to be able to do that just fine. Overall takeaways, guys, this is one of those events where we like to take a step back and maybe take a grander or a bigger, larger picture view of things. For you, it starts with the battle at Georgia.
Right. I was going to say, when we did our little round table to kick off this event, my big question, or what I wanted to know, I had a hunch that the gap between Dylan Raiola and Ryan Puglisi, the two Georgia quarterback commits, wasn't that big. I think it is kind of big. Right, and this is no knock on Pugs, Ryan Puglisi. I thought he did some good things out here. You know, guy hasn't played much 7-on-7. I think he's still kind of figuring it out as a quarterback, right? The tools are there, the traits are there, the arm's there. He's got a big cannon, the frame's there. Just has to work on the accuracy, the timing, and stuff like that. He did not have the best of 7-on-7 games. On the flip side, Dylan Raiola, guy with the target on his back, he delivered. And I think he was a little upset that last night we didn't make, you know, he moved down in our rankings. I think he was upset that Julian Sayin, so he came out firing, right? Threw for over 180 yards, four scoring drives in that 7-on-7 portion. I had a hunch kind of coming in that maybe Puglisi could push Dylan Raiola. I think Dylan Raiola flexed and said, no, man, this is going to be my job in Athens.
Well, I want to talk about Dylan Raiola, right? We hadn't talked about him. We've been on here 10 minutes or whatever, however long, and number one player in the country, right? Number one signal caller. It was Julian Sayin who came out on top this week with a strong performance. But Dylan Raiola, make no mistake, he is who we thought he was. He's the number one player in the country. You saw the arm talent, the NFL arm talent throughout the week. He is a really good fit at the University of Georgia. He's a really good fit anywhere in the country, right? This guy can do some things at the position player, as you alluded to earlier when we were talking, that nobody else here can do, right? He's a three-level passer. I think what really stood out was the long ball. And a lot of people are going to talk about the arm strength, but it's the accuracy, the ball placement, and the touch of how he throws that long ball. I think that's going to lead to a lot of explosive plays in Kirby Smart's offense. And listen, he's dynamic. He's different. And I think he is one of the better prospects that we've seen, not only this year, but in the last couple years at the quarterback position. Physically, he's just really naturally gifted.
Yeah, that looming battle at Georgia is going to be fascinating. We know what Kirby Smart's able to do on the defensive side of the ball. If they're able to figure out that quarterback thing, you know, this could be a program that maybe doesn't lose for another decade or so. They are actually coming out here to up the road in Pasadena, 2025. They're playing at UCLA. UCLA will now, at that point, be a Big Ten program, and that's where I have my eyes. The Big Ten is going to be a fascinating landscape because of all the changes, and at the quarterbacks position specifically, we saw three guys, maybe more, but I think three guys that really stood out to me. Aaron Nolan, Ohio State. You got Ethan Grunkemeyer at Penn State, and then Jaden Davis at Michigan, who right now is a five-star quarterback. And I think when you look at that, what separates them? Who's going to be able to take a bigger jump? Who has maybe the higher upside? Who has the projectability to make leaps and bounds into their own development? I think that's going to be a fascinating topic for me when I kind of think about the future and who could maybe take hold of the Big Ten.
You want to throw Daniel Kalen in that group, the Nebraska commit?
So he was the best guy in the accuracy challenge over there, and what really stood out to me is that he knew he had to nail the last three throws, and the last two throws are the most difficult throws. It's a big, long post into the wind. You're throwing into the beach side. It's about 35, 40 yards downfield. He knew he had to nail them. He nicks the first one, he gets it. Second one, they're like, hey, this is for the win. This is for the win. And he drops back, rolls out, hits one, and nails it. And he won the accuracy challenge. So I think Matt Rule is getting a guy there, right, that understands pressure. He just lived up to it and understood the responsibility that he had. So it's going to be, I think, a really fascinating conference to look at.
I know Cooper's a big fan. He's the one that is pushing Danny behind the scenes on us. I'll say this about him. I like the frame. I think you got to have the frame. He's got that. And in between the ears, he's a super bright kid. So I agree. Matt Rule going from Dylan Raiola, you know, when you lose that sweepstakes, go get Daniel Kalen. And we didn't even point this out. Daniel Kalen is only the second invite ever from a quarterback in the state of Nebraska. Zane Flores was the guy last year who ended up signing with Ohio State. So, you know, this is a big stage for him. You know, a lot of these guys are participating in a lot of camps, a lot of different events. He shows up, and I thought he held his own.
Last point I'm going to make on the Big Ten. Penn State, I want to talk about it. You hit on it earlier, right? The eval of Ethan Grunkemeyer, Jackson Smolik last year as well, who was committed to Tulane at this point a year ago. And then you bring in Drew Aller, right, who I think is one of the most exciting names at the quarterback position in the country. That roster is set up for success in the long haul as well. We know about Nicholas Singleton, Katron Allen. They're doing a great job up front. Penn State, to me, that is a team to watch over the next 4 to 5 years, and I love what they're doing at the quarterback position.
Yeah, they've been getting it done on the recruiting trail. Let's go down the list. The alpha dog, Julian Sayin here at the Elite 11 Finals in Los Angeles, followed by Dylan Raiola, the Georgia commit. You got Aaron Nolan, the left-hander, headed to Ohio State. Luke Kromenhoek, Florida State commit, a huge win for them to be able to pull him early and do that early eval. CJ Carr at number 5, followed by Jaden Davis, the Michigan-bound quarterback. Will Hammond, Ethan Grunkemeyer, Colin Hurley, DJ Lagway, Daniel Kalin, and Trevor Jackson rounds out the top 12 with that alpha dog, Julian Sayin, at the top. Make sure you stay locked into the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel for everything on your college football recruiting news and your college football team. We've got the recruiting show. We've got the guys, the Oyster Boys from the recruiting podcast, and everything you would want as a college football fan, as a recruiting fan. You could find it over at the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. That'll do it for us. Cooper Patagna, national recruiting analyst at 24/7 Sports, along with the director of scouting at 24/7 Sports. I am Blair Angulo. Thank you so much for tuning in, and this is what we've got, guys. This is the Elite 11 Finals in Los Angeles. A great week here in California.